Right, so welcome back to another episode of Access Granted. I'm delighted to have 4 very special guests around the table, all part of Team Bizpedia. So in terms of the format for today's show, we're going to start off with introductions. After that, each one of you I know has brought a very interesting question you're going to like to ask your other members. So we're going to spend an hour just having an informal glass of wine, having a chat and seeing what we can learn. Sound fair enough?
Sounds great.
Okay, so let's do it. I like that attitude, right? Let's do it. Right, so let's do it, Dan. Let's start with you, to my left. Do you want to quickly introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. My name's Dan, and my company's The Funky Peach. We're a printing company based over in Poole, but we service the UK with printed clothing and branded merchandise.
Helen?
Helen Ward, Business Development Director for Chewton, Glen, so a 5-star luxury hotel, Hampshire, Dorset border.
Dave?
Dave Green, Managing Director of a company called Lightning Safety Systems. We protect property and save lives by a series of life safety systems.
Hello, I'm Kevin Briscoe and I run Briscoe Public Relations, or a PR agency, and we essentially get you in front of the people who buy your products and services.
Nice. Thanks, ladies and gents. My stellar cast for this afternoon. So let's start with our first question. Kevin, what would you like to ask?
So I'd like to ask everyone if, what their views are on that traditional question people say, the customer's always right. Well, are they? Is the customer always right?
Who wants to kick me off? Go on then, Helen.
In my industry, it goes without saying, of course, the customer is always right. However, I think it's where you set your expectation. For a business like ours, expectation is incredibly high. So, the tiniest detail could be a problem to one person. It may not even, it may not affect the other. So I think, yes, in our industry, the customer is always right. However, if you don't agree, it's just, trying to make those memories and make their experience, the best that it could be. Really.
Is that, knowing Chewton Glen, big fan of Chewton Glen, as Exton Park I am as well. We don't want to get myself in too much hot water. But culturally, in terms of a training at Chewton Glen, do you guys focus on that mantra that the customer's always right a lot?
Yeah, I mean, it goes without saying, in all of our training, we are there to ensure that the customer has the best experience possible. And, if they decide that they have to have this with their dinner, or they don't feel that their room is big enough or the terrace is big enough, that's opinion. More than right or wrong, it is their opinion. We have our opinion, they have their opinion. But yeah, it is definitely ingrained into us.
So unequivocally, from you, it is the customer's always right.
The customer is always right in a hospitality business.
Very diplomatic, I like it. Dan, what do you think?
I agree. I mean, personally, do I think the customer's always right? Obviously not. But does our business behave like the customer's always right? Then
Yeah,
same
exactly.
as you. I think when I started, I knew all my customers personally, and I think I always had the mantra that it's customer service over short-term profit. Basically, we'd put anything right if there was a fault, and that'd be regardless of fault as well. And that's followed through, even though we've got bigger and brought in disclaimers and things for customers to sign, to say that obviously what we print is what they've approved. 9 times out of 10, we still will side with the customer.
Is there any stories in your career that you can kind of remember where there was maybe a situation where you...
Don't like talking about this because we've come a long way since then. But
We're among friends,
I
Dan.
did spell Edinburgh wrong on somebody's tops once, and they collected the day before flying off to Edinburgh. That was a long time ago, 10 years ago now, so I haven't done that since. But yeah, I've had a couple of clangers. few and far between. But yeah.
Nice, thanks for sharing, I appreciate it. Dave, what do you reckon?
I think I'd have, without checking on the fence, I think I'd have 2 answers to this. If we're not in a transactional sort of business, we're in more a relationship type business. So if we've got a customer that their values are sort of diametrically opposed to ours, then we try and have a conversation where we would meet in the middle somewhere. If, however, that it just wasn't to be, we would ultimately try and discreetly and subtly and politely distance ourselves from them. Now, we don't want to do that very often because we're obviously a commercial business, but I don't think it's right to deal with a customer that you feel isn't right for your business anyway at all. And equally, we're not right for them. So neither side are going to be very happy. So if it's a lot of unreasonable demands, in our opinion, then we'll try and meet somewhere. But if not, we would look to distance ourselves after a period of time.
In your career, how often has that happened where you've decided that it's not a good fit for you?
Well, a few times actually, only once or twice in my current company, but the one I had before, we had a really big customer. They were spending £300,000 a year with us. So they're one of our top 10 customers, and they wanted everything from us. They wanted the longest credit terms, they wanted the lowest prices, they wanted the best service. They wouldn't accept anything else. They wouldn't pay us on the due time. They were given 60 days, they were paying on 90, 120. They're looking for any reason not to pay us. And it just didn't feel to us like a fair and equitable relationship. So we had all the meetings and discussions with them, said, this is the problem, this is the agreement we've got, this is the reality of it. We need to get closer back to the original agreement, otherwise we just can't do all these things for you. And we also felt that our service to other customers was going to slip if we kept doing all these things for this other customer. So we explained it to them, and we just gradually sort of parted our ways. They wanted us for a while, which was fine. We did the best we could for them, and they went and found another supplier, which was fine.
Nice, that's strong leadership, right? Saying no to the money. Did you have a lot of friction internally with your other directors?
Wasn't, yeah. To be fair, we all agree. We're all a bit nervous about it. I'm not going to pretend we weren't, but we all felt that long term it was the right thing to do. We have a little segment process with customers where we have those that are really big and important to us, and on an ongoing basis have a need for our products or services. Then we have those that potentially could be there but aren't quite there yet for whatever reason. Then we have maintenance customers, which you need to talk to every 2 or 3 months, and your email and that sort of thing. Then we have the why bother customers. Mm-hmm. And that's a question, and it's also a statement. And this one, why bothers at the moment, they could be really poor customers, but with some nurturing, they could be really good. Or it might be our fault that they're not doing very well. But others, you think, why bother? Why are we dealing with that? And they came under this why bother heading, and we looked at it, and very nervously, tentatively thought, no, we can't afford to keep this customer on an ongoing basis. It won't be viable for us. So that's the decision we made.
Nice. So it's not necessarily that the question around, is the customer always right? Your thought process on that is, are they the right customer for us?
For us, yeah. And yeah, it was, yeah. And I think that's the same thing. They wanted so much, and we just couldn't give that to them consistently. So sooner or later, we would, in their eyes, have let them down. So we thought, let's just raise the issue now, and let's just confront it. Nice. Obviously in a professional way, and that's what we did.
Helen, is there any examples of in your career where there's been customers you've been clearly like, they're not right for us?
100%, yeah. I mean, not in my current role, but when I've had my own events company before, it was a small business in the grand scheme of things. It was mainly me running it. There'd be clients that come along that you're like, yeah, you're the perfect fit for us. You're kind of on brand with our direction, where we want to go, our future clients, that we want to try to attract. There'd be other customers that come along, frankly, they could be very rude and demanding from the offset. They want your full service, but they're the ones that are negotiating on the price, and you just kind of think, no, I can be fully booked for this year, and I don't need your business to tip me over the edge with, workload. And so yeah, I've refused business quite often in the past just because the client doesn't seem like the right fit for us. Yeah.
One time, when I was first starting out in consultancy, I went to a seminar that was run by someone who had run massive PR agencies and then had retired and then was just doing talks. And at the time, when you're first starting out, you're kind of thinking, I just want to get business in. That's all I'm interested in, get business in. And this guy stood up and said, you know what, sometimes there's no better feeling than sacking a client. Mm-hmm. And of course, at the time, I thought, are you mad? How could you possibly even think about that? But actually, over the years, I've had to do it a few times. And not very often, thankfully, but a couple of times. And he was right. There is no better feeling than actually a client that's not a good fit for your business, just saying, you know what, this isn't working for both of us, so let's move on.
Yeah.
That's actually really interesting, because I have that. I come across this all the time where we stick to our where we want to stick to our processes. We still sometimes bow down because we do want happy customers. And I always wonder, when would that time come where we feel either that we're big enough to stick to the disclaimers, regardless of it not being our fault, or we felt that would it be when we started shifting more online, which is something we're doing, and becoming faceless. But I spoke to somebody who's quite big in what we do, sending out 500 orders a day, completely online, no face to the company at all. And the issues that they have with that, they've got 200 cases in dispute at the minute with the payment providers. Couriers will forever be siding with the customer, the end user, same as these payment providers siding with them. So he feels like that decision's taken out of his hands in terms of the customer always right. And that coupled with the review sites, so Google reviews, Checkatrade, Trustpilot, you name it, like he's always fighting that battle. And online he's gone from being a 5-star company to a 3.5-star company, and a lot of the time it's not a fault, but he feels a little bit hard done by that. So we always feel, when's that change coming? Like, none of our customers are really big enough or small enough for us to make that decision. It's got to be as a whole. Where do we stand with that? But yeah.
Kevin, it was your question. What do you think? Is the customer always right?
Yeah, so because I'm in a consultancy type business, we often have those discussions with our clients. So quite often we'll go for a client meeting, we'll go and see the client, and one of the first things they'll talk about when we're talking about planning and what we're going to do is a client will say, oh, I've got this great story for you to work on. And they tell you about it, and actually it's really not a great story. So, our role there, I think, is to push back and say, actually, I don't think that would work, or this presents risk or danger to your business and your reputation if we go down, and here's what the consequences of that are. So why don't we try and do it a different way? At the end of the day, when we talk to our clients, obviously, anything that we do goes out in the name of the client. It doesn't go out in our name, it goes out in their name. So at the end of the day, if they insist on taking a particular course of action, we will probably end up doing it. I'm not saying we would definitely end up doing it, we would probably end up doing it, because if ethically it didn't fit with our ethics, then we wouldn't touch it. But we would probably end up doing it, but we would have explained what the consequences are. So I suppose at the end of the day, they're always right, but not on first interaction. I think it's our role, actually, to go back to a client and say, actually, I don't think that's a good idea. I think that's a really poor idea, and these are the reasons why. Let's try and approach it from this direction instead and do something a bit different, take a different approach.
Appreciate it. Nice question. Good stuff. Good start. Right, moving on. Number 2. Dan, let's go to you.
Right. If you were given £25,000 to put towards your sales and marketing budget, what would you spend it on and why?
Kevin, let's come to you.
Wow, £25,000 would be great to be able to spend on that. It's interesting because we get a lot of our business from doing, going to networking, building relationships over a period of time, and actually, I kind of think actually throwing money at something isn't necessarily going to work for us. If I'm really honest, because we don't really spend, other than the money we spend on networking, we don't really spend money on business development. Directly. So I found this one quite a tricky one to answer. Obviously I kind of think, well, yeah, we could do some lead generation and we could do some telesales to arrange meetings to start. But, we're not in the business of kind of direct selling. Of course we are selling our services, but that's usually built up like a relationship. I never bump into someone and sell my services to them there and then. I never bump into anybody who says, oh, thank God we found a PR person. Can you come and do 3 months for us? It never happens. Never happens, But I get people who I haven't seen for like 3 years or 5 years will suddenly ring me up or email me and say, oh, do you still do that PR thing? Can you come and have a chat to us? And it's all about the relationship. So I did find it quite difficult to answer this one, if I'm really honest. You can always throw money at something. I could throw money at, maybe getting my website a bit sharper for people who are doing Google searches to find us for the first time, to do telesales, to do lead generation. All of that sort of stuff is probably where I'd go. If someone said there's a £25,000 grant and all you can do is spend it on that, that's probably where I'd go. But I don't think it would. I'm not 100% sure it would work.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
So if you say the 25 grand, you can split it across different activities. Do you know how you might divvy it up? Like, would you put 5 grand into website, 15 into networking?
Yeah, I'd probably, we already spend on networking, but I'd probably spend a bit more on networking, maybe, to try and get to a bit more stuff. So probably put about 5k into that, maybe 5k on the website. Probably doesn't need that much, but probably 5k just to really sharpen that up a little bit, and probably the rest into telesales. just trying to fix up appointments. And because, you know, the hardest thing for us as a business actually is, and this is why I do a lot of networking, the hardest thing for us is actually just getting in front of someone. Getting in front of someone for the first time. When I get in front of someone and talk to them about what we can do, what the benefits of what we can do are for their business, usually they kind of think, actually, we could do some of that. So, but the hardest bit is getting to that stage.
Nice, thanks, Kevin. Helen, coming to you. So the question, you've got 25 grand, let's say sales and marketing budget for the next 12 months.
Yeah, which is a really interesting question for me because I'm very fortunate to have a budget that's much, much bigger than that for Chewton Glen for sales and marketing. So I was thinking, okay, so if I had that chopped right down and got given 25 grand, what are the most impactful things for the least amount of money, right? So I think, partner marketing is something that we are kind of already doing at the hotel, but I think if you had 25 grand or less, it's a really impactful thing because you could say, I don't know if I'm allowed to name other brands.
Of course you can.
For example.
Yeah, I know Bizpedia is your best partner brand. We know, everyone knows that as a given, right? So
for example, if I partnered with Bizpedia or something, straight away we're halving our budgets, we're spending half each, but I am getting your audience, you are getting my audience. So straight away, say we're doubling our reach, but we're only spending half the money. So it's quite a clever way of doing it. And, especially with certain products, so we have a certain, type of welly boot in the hotel, or we stock a certain jewellery brand or whatever it is. They have hundreds of thousands of followers on social media, for example, so they could be a really good brand partner to work with, spend less but get much, much more out of it. And then the other would be PR. We do quite a lot of PR activity as it is, but anything from the editorial side of it, which is so beneficial for a business like ours to have kind of a journalist there experiencing the product and then talking about their own memories from their stay is kind of what it's all about, because you're living it, aren't you, through them. And as the influencer trend is still going, that's also quite a powerful thing for us. So being selective with which influencers you choose, but essentially you're giving them a stay and an experience, and then they may have a few million people that want to come and live their life. So that can be really powerful. And then the third note that I had really was the networking and getting out there, meeting people. It doesn't cost, a huge amount, right? To get out there and just talk to people.
Love that.
Yeah.
Really good piece of advice. I thought it would be a good question for you to be better in your world. You've got brand partnerships, but that's a nice one, right? Brand partnership, good one.
Yeah, it's a really key one. And I could easily say, don't do anything apart from 25 grand into digital marketing, because that, we've got a new digital team at the hotel. They spend more than that, but it can be so impactful. And, you can send one newsletter out, and if it's really spot on, you can make a huge return on that. But yeah, I'd want to get more creative with it, I think, if I had 25 grand to spend. Yeah.
Nice. Well, look, Chewton will know they're in safe hands if they do decide to reduce your budget. Then
This isn't an advert to cut
we're
my
going to
budget.
clip this, send it to Clive. All good to go. Helen's got this.
People say 2024, you've got 25 grand. Great.
Nice. Dave, coming to you.
Yes, good. It's an interesting question, that one. And I think I should answer it with a bit of a caveat first, and that is our company aren't very good at marketing. We haven't been. We're a little bit of a best kept secret. So what's proven probably the best for us in terms of marketing and advertising is our people. And I think what I would do, I would spend that £25,000 going towards the cost of taking on another business development manager. I would put him or her in a geographical right area. I'd look for the person that's got the right, usually we'd expect to do the right skills and experience and attitude and customer base. And so that 25,000 would go towards that. If that wasn't possible, is my second option, I think we'd hold an event. You've got things like golf days and all that stuff, which are a bit passé, but I would try and think of something a little bit original and different to have a company event. And then it's a little bit like brand partnerships. You're going to get some of your good customers and good suppliers there. Maybe it'll help sponsor it as well to an extent, certainly the suppliers. And something very memorable and different, and get your good people on there, and hopefully then you're going to engender some additional loyalty and awareness, and then get some digital marketing on the back of it afterwards. So use your social media, LinkedIn and Facebook, etc., just to promote what you've done.
Dan, happy with those answers?
Really good, yeah.
Yeah. Gotta say yes.
It's
haven't
funny.
you?
Out of all the answers, my response to that question would be the most boring. Because I'll just chuck it at a website, job done.
Yeah?
Yeah, because
But it's easy to say that, yeah.
And then hearing all that, hence why we asked it, 'cause it's
Yeah.
a question we're obviously asking our marketing guys at the minute and things like that. So it's really interesting to hear, like, particularly yours, from what you do and that. So yeah, we'd spend ours on our marketing. We get eye-watering quotes back for the next phase of our development. So the more money we've got, the more features we can have.
And money can just get lost in the digital world, and I think that's what we really need to be careful of. We have a sales and marketing budget for the hotel. Within that sits its own digital marketing budget, which is literally like, it can change week by week in terms of if we need to pace better or whatever we need to do. But it's so easy to say, right, let's put it all into that. But
you've got to market it as
for
well.
a business with and it covers what you said earlier.
Well, it ends on 25 grand. Dan.
I've been given 25,000, but I need to borrow an additional 25 to market the website.
Yeah.
You wrote the question, that's not how it works.
Yeah.
Can I add a bit on?
There's that famous quote by, I think it was Henry Ford, who said that half of my marketing and advertising budget is a waste. I wish I knew which half it was.
That's a very good
And
quote.
that's the problem, isn't it? Yeah.
Nice. Helen, what's your question?
So my question is, who or what has inspired you most in business in your life?
Any hands up? Who wants to go first?
I don't mind.
Go on,
Yeah, I'll go first. I did spend a long time thinking about this, but actually I just kept coming back to the same person, actually, and it was an individual. In terms of inspired me professionally. And it's literally right the way back to when I was first starting out. I'm a journalist by training, so I worked as a journalist on newspapers. And when I was a trainee journalist, I worked in the main newsroom for the first sort of 6 to 9 months, and then went out to a district office. And when I was out in the district office there, I had a chief reporter, and her name was Jackie White. Which still is. Her name is Jackie White. No. So I hope she doesn't mind me giving her a shout out. But actually, she.
I don't know if she inspired you.
No, exactly. I've told her this before, but she just changed my whole outlook to the way that I worked, the way that I thought about stories, the way that I approached writing articles and all that sort of stuff. And I only really worked with her for probably about a year, but sometimes sometimes it was there was stick and carrot, but it worked really well. And it doesn't always, that sort of approach doesn't always work for everybody. I know that, but actually she found the method that worked best for me, because actually even now I still think, you know what, that's because Jackie told me how to do that. Even now, and that was. That we're talking about 1987, 88. So how long ago is that? That's 35 years ago. So it's a long time, but those lessons that I learned from her still kind of inform my work every day.
Go Jackie White.
Jackie White.
If she's still called Jackie White.
She is still called Jackie
fingers
White.
crossed.
Yeah.
Which
She's
we
moved
don't
out of the area now, but she was great and really model. And I stayed as a journalist for 10 years, and that first sort of year can make or break you, actually, in that, because it's a tough profession now, it was a tough profession then. Actually, I stayed with it for a good 10 years. And actually, I kind of, even now, I kind of still see, I'm a journalist who does PR, I'm not a PR who used to be a journalist. I kind of still see that I'm still, at the end of the day, I'm a storyteller.
If I was to ask you one lesson that Jackie taught you, what would it be?
It was writing. It was writing. And actually, it's really interesting, actually, because I've got a team of my own now, and I don't have very many other people who are journalists in my team. They're all specialists in other aspects of PR. But that skill of writing a press release is, I think some people think it's really easy to do, and it's not. I have to say, it's a real skill. And because I've done it, and I always say this to the younger members of my team, that they say, I wish I could write it like that, because I can do it quite easily. And I can bash out a press release fairly quickly, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and they might toil over it for an hour or 2 hours, and then they'll bring it to me and I'll say, oh yeah, but let's just turn it around and do it slightly differently. And they say, oh, I wish I could do that. And I said, look, I've been doing it for a long time, and it took me a long time to get to the stage that I'm at now, so just keep working at it. But that whole thing about being able to write in a way that will tell a story in a way that people want to read it. Because when you're a journalist, one of the first rule is they want to read that intro, the first line. They want to read that first line. And if they read that first line, does it say enough to draw them onto the second line? And does the second line draw them onto the third line? If someone stops halfway down your story and doesn't read the bottom half, where there might be some really important information, you've failed in your job. You've got to get them to. You've got to be able to tell the story in a way that people read it to the bottom, and it was things like that.
Nice, thanks, Kevin.
Good one.
Dan,
Good one.
who's inspired you the most?
I don't know if it's an actual individual. I was trying to think. I thought this was such a good question because I was
Who or
thinking,
what?
who is it or
Yeah.
what? Yeah, and going back to my parents would be an obvious one because they have businesses or work really hard. And I think from a young age, I saw my mum run companies, forever be on the phone, taking us into the office at the weekends and things like that. And I feel, even though I never wanted to be in business, that's definitely stuck with me. The roll up your sleeves and get stuff done kind of spirit, and that's rubbed off on me and my brother and my sister because we're all in the company. Seeing my dad, how he brought us up, we moved down to Bournemouth when I was about 14. Dad stayed working in London, so just remember him driving from Bournemouth to London every day at 5 o'clock in the morning, 2-hour drive, working at a job all day, coming back to us free, playing up, looking after us, bringing us up. And I sometimes think now when I come home and say personal life's a little bit more challenging than normal or a bit more testing, I've had a 20-minute drive and an 8-hour day. Like, I don't know, I still reflect on that now and just think, hats off, that's definitely inspired me, even though I don't stop and think about it along the way. But as cheesy as it sounds, I think I get my inspiration a lot of the time from my clients and customers. I'm fortunate enough to spend time with 10 business owners a day, and I can read all the books and I can follow all the right influencers and I can get inspired, but it's only for a short period. I find that by speaking to business owners who are in the trenches with you a lot of the time, and we know what it's like, you've got personal life, the challenges there, and then you've got this big business life plonked on top. And just to hear the stories of when it's going good and bad. And recently I spoke to a guy, had a period of poor health, managed to, for 6 months, keep his business going. That to me is inspiring when you hear about his story and you picture yourself in that scenario. And then on the flip side, speaking to a guy the other day that I worked with a long time ago, was in a call centre together, and he is in a relatively young business and about to make some serious life-changing profits. And we were on the phone and I just thought to myself, wow, it's not my dream, but that is impressive. And that inspired me. And the guy I spent last weekend with, again, on the flip side, he always used to say to me, I'm going to sell this company, I'm going to sell this company. That path has now taken shape, that journey. He can see what that looks like in 5 years' time, he will. He's had a bit of external influence. And again, it's not what I'm trying to achieve, but he was always harping on about it and it's about to happen. And I just through either good planning or hard work, whatever it may be, I just pull those pockets of inspiration from the people I speak to each day. And hence the reason I do so much networking, because sometimes you do just need to speak to people who are doing it in a similar boat to you and hear the good and the bad. The books tell you the good, the podcasts tell you the good. So it's a cheesy answer, but yeah, that bunch.
Yeah, nice. I love that. Also, we don't say on this podcast. We clearly don't say all the good because we've realised that you can't spell Edinburgh correctly.
Very true, yeah.
You know,
When you come on a podcast and you make the mistake straight away of admitting something like that, the rest of the time I'm thinking, doesn't matter why I say
Doesn't
it.
matter.
This is going out. Yeah.
it's certainly not lost on me though. Motivation from your peers, right? Like being in that friendship, like network group. It's kind of like you're just cheering everyone on. Do you know what I mean? Like, oh shit, like Helen's really doing some cool stuff. I need to get my act together. Do you know what I mean? Which you clearly are. Right, nice, Dan. Thank you. Dave, what inspires you?
Very similar to Kevin's, Dan's ways there. First of all, I had an old business partner, a guy called Anthony Willoughby, who you've introduced you to. But then what he made me aware of is the importance of having values in your business. We've all got them in our private life. But if you've got respect or trust or whatever it is that's important to you personally, surely you have to have the same thing in your professional life. And he introduced a way that I brought that into my old company, and we're just doing quite well, but growing slowly. And then we had values there which were pride, confidence, belonging, and winning, and we based every decision and all our strategies and purpose around those values. And that in our business just over the next 7 or 8 years, we went from 1 and a bit million to 10.5 million. And it was based on that very strong foundation of values. So he, in that way, was the biggest inspiration to me. And the other one, which is very similar but reverse there, is family. My sort of biggest motivation or inspiration now are my 2 boys. Because as opposed to your parents, I'm going the other way. And I just try and be driven and be the best I can be to be sort of a role model for those. And that's what it is now for me. It's that part now, moving forward, and then looking back, it was answering the values. And obviously the family bit and the values linked together quite nicely anyway. So that's me.
Nice. Love's a great motivator, isn't it? When you've like kids or family, like
You just
nothing more
appreciate
pure
it.
than that. It's like,
At the time, you just don't appreciate it. And as you get older, and you start doing that, like you're driving home to those scenarios, and you're just thinking, how take a hat off them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And like,
And if they gave you a great head start, clearly, and a great sort of model to
and I
to
don't
follow.
get to tell them, so I'm going to have to send them a clip of
oh
this.
man, they're going to be like welling up crying.
Yeah, crop this bit out.
100%, right? Just damn straight. Okay, Dave, coming to your question.
My question is, and I'm sure it's a hypothetical for everybody around the table, if you've got or have ever had part of your business that is unprofitable, how did you change it?
Dan, let's go to you. I know, like, it's not about part of business.
I did chuckle at this because we spend the whole of December and January non-profitable, but it's...
How you turning it around then?
Yeah, we're a bit of a seasonal business, but this is a really good question because I've had to ask myself this at the start of January because my brother's taking more of a controlling role in the company and I'm looking to try and push us on. And it's impossible to push us on without evaluating where we currently are. We have introduced so many new processes, new members of staff, different departments, but our pricing structure stayed the same. So regardless of the size of the order, it follows the same journey. It has to go through sales. It then needs to go through to the office to secure stock, take payment, book the jobs in, has to go through to artwork, create visuals, make the job print ready, then through to the print team in production. There's also an element of warehouse, pick, pack and dispatch, and then back to the office. So it's a big journey. Now that's regardless of the size of the order. That the argument would be now is whether those smaller jobs are profitable enough for them to follow that journey with the amount of hands it has to follow. What I've decided to do is rather than look at our pricing for it, because we don't want to be the cheapest, but we do like being competitive, particularly with the online supplies, looking at our processes, what software we can bring in to make sure that when we raise that invoice, it actually talks to our suppliers via an API link, for example, orders that stuff directly, whether the customer can create their own visuals with an online designer, whether the production guys can use a traffic light system to tell the customer what stage their job's at. That can obviously link through to couriers and things like that. So a bit technical, but it's a great question because I don't think there's one thing I found yet, one particular thing that's not profitable, but I do worry that our process with the growth we've had in the last year, I feel like we're concentrating on growing and just probably kind of stuck in, set in our ways really with some of our processes. And yeah, we just need to streamline that journey 100%.
Sounds like, you spend a lot of attention on streamlining the process to make it...
We can't see that our margin's been affected hugely, but it must be. There's no way the smaller jobs can follow that journey without being affected.
Kevin, thoughts?
We have, over time, from time to time, we found that we can quite easily slip into over-servicing clients. And once you start over-servicing them a little bit, you suddenly find you're over-servicing them a lot in a fairly short space of time. While this wasn't happening across the board, I did find it was happening with. I had a feeling it was happening with a couple of clients, and we thought, well, how are we going to tackle that? One of the worst things when you're in a sort of consultancy business like us is that phrase, could you just? So, we can quite often do something for a client and they'll say, oh, could you just do this? And could you just do that? And we always just sort of say,
I use that a lot.
There you go. We kind of, you kind of think, oh yeah, we can just do that.
The customer's always right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, and actually, if it's just a little job, you kind of think, well, yeah, why not? Of course, I can just do that. But then suddenly it becomes, could you just do this as well? And I started thinking, actually, if I thought about, let's take, for example, we've got a couple of clients in retail. If I went to them and said, I've been for a meeting, I'm just going to buy these things. Oh, could I just have that and that and that? Of course, they would say no. And I kind of think, well, why? You know, but
How are you going to get around that?
Yeah, there's a balance. So
Yeah.
first of all, what we did, we started actually measuring our time. Actually, you know, we say to clients, here's our time, because all we can sell is time, we're not selling a product. Here's the time. So, okay, and here's how much time we need to allocate to get all of the jobs done. But we also are better now at setting the boundaries when we first start working with a client. To say, this is what we'll do, and we have a call-off rate. If you want extra stuff, that's fine, and this is how much it will cost. Now, you know, we're not so inflexible that, because if someone still says, could you just, I kind of think, actually, you know what, for us, that's a 2-minute job. Well, of course we'll just do it, because it's goodwill. It's all part of that goodwill thing, isn't it?
Yeah, out of curiosity, do you build any extra buffer time around that stuff?
No. I mean, there's obviously
So you think it's
there is
gonna-
a profit, there's a margin.
Yeah.
I kind of think, you know, our hourly rate, I kind of think there's a margin built into that. You know, we still haven't got it right. We're still kind of trying to get to that place where we've definitely got it right, because quite often, you know, we have a fantastic relationship with clients, and when they say, "Could you just?" we kind of just say, "Oh yeah, go on then," and we'll just do it. When it becomes more difficult is when a client says, "Right, can you do that as well, and that, and that, and that, and that," and you know, and if everybody just says, "Yeah, we'll just do that," then suddenly we find we're swamped, and what we're actually, you know, our hourly rate is half what it should be, because we're kind of spending twice as much time on it as we should. Yeah. So
You're learning to say no.
Well, not say no, but say, yeah, we can do that, but this is what it will cost us.
Cool. Helen, thoughts?
So in terms of Chewton Glen, I mean, the business...
Extremely profitable.
Extremely profitable. The business is profitable. We're very fortunate to be in that position. There are elements within the business that are definitely more challenging month to month, to ensure that they are as profitable as the rest. I'm going to be very diplomatic here. Nice. But, you know, I'll just throw one out there. Food costs, for example. We're in the situation where, you know, our food has to be the best, really. We have to use the finest produce, you know, whether that comes locally, which a lot of our produce does, or whether it comes from Scotland or wherever the best salmon's going to come from, or the best oysters are going to come from, or wherever. So I think, you know, a similar kind of story to you, that the products have to be of a premium level, but they have to go through a certain number of hands, and that becomes... you know, that becomes quite tricky, and supply and demand is a big issue. And then, you know, pricing it in a way that the customer isn't going to go, wow, I'm not going to spend this much on a burger or this much, but they won't see that actually that burger was from here, the bun was from here, the journey it's come on to get here, the marketing that's gone into selling you that burger, the product development behind the burger, you know, all of that stuff that you have to think about in a business like ours. So I think it's that expectation again, it's pricing something in a way that doesn't knock people off their seats, but using the finest produce you could possibly use. It's just getting the balance of that right to make sure that our finance director is happy.
That's a tough call, getting your finance director happy.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so I'd say that's food cost is always going to be a challenging one, because you want to give the best, but you're also spending a hell of a lot of money to get that on the plate. So, yeah.
Right, lady and gents, I really appreciate the question. So I've got the final question of the day. I think it's become pretty obvious through this podcast that you're all rock stars. Yeah. So this is going to be very easy to imagine for the audience, which is, I want you to think, we're going to make a film on your life, okay? We're going to make a film all about your life. And I would like to know from yourselves who is going to play you, okay? So which actor, actress you think is going to play you the best in this biopic about you, okay?
It's so hard because I don't watch many films. There's my excuse, certainly.
Well, no, not taking excuses. We don't take excuses here at Bizpedia. Pure
I'm
responsibility.
aiming really high.
Yeah, absolutely. We like the
If
aspiration.
I could pick anyone to play me, Margot Robbie.
Love that. High five for Margot Robbie. Absolutely. I like good answer.
I think she's incredible. So yeah, I'd have her.
Done. Sold. Dave?
I always jokingly say that I'm Brad Pitt's brother, Cess. So I'd either have Brad or more. No, I'd actually have my favourite actor, which would be Tom Hanks. I think he's fantastic. I'm going like you. I'm going high.
Yeah, aim high. Yeah.
Sure. Tom Hanks, Margot Robbie.
Yeah.
Love it.
Cess Pitt.
Go on, Dan.
I'm going with Dwayne The Rock Johnson. No reason why. Looks great.
Yeah. It's great. Yeah.
WWE wrestler on the quiet eye.
Go ahead, Kevin. Final thought. Who plays Kevin Briscoe?
Well, I think I'd probably go a little bit old school, but I kind of always think, that Robert Redford would look good as me.
Love it. You've got Robert Redford, Dwayne The Rock Johnson, Margot Robbie, Tom Hanks.
Who's yours?
Who's mine?
Yeah.
Probably someone like Bradley Cooper, I'd imagine. Yeah, I don't know. I haven't really thought about it too much. But yeah.
Sam Smith.
His outfit the other day. Yeah,
He
thanks.
reminded me of you at
Well,
the time,
whoever
Josh.
wears black and gold regularly, I'm down with whoever that might be.
Exactly, yeah.
Right. I guess that's a good way to wrap up. I just wanted to say, look, cheers to you all. Thanks for being here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Josh.
Thanks for those who listened. Look, tune in again to the next episode. That's it from me.